Hi guys, I'm Juva. The TOEFL speaking section is a real challenge, especially if you are not used to speaking English in everyday life. I scored 27 in TOEFL speaking, and today I am going to tell you my 7 top tips for getting a high score in TOEFL speaking. Let's get started. Let's start with tip number 1. Use a template. Guys, using a template is really important. A template is a lifesaver. A template is a lifesaver for several reasons. First, you don't need to think about what you need to say in TOEFL speaking, because if you memorize a template, you will already know how to start your sentences in the speaking section. You won't need to think about what you can say, because it will already be in your mind, and this is a great help because in TOEFL speaking you will be under pressure. You will be under pressure because there is a timer that tells you how much time you have to think about a task and how much time you have to answer this task. And this will put a lot of pressure on you. You will be nervous, and when we are nervous, we tend to forget things. So it's really great having a template in your head, because it is something you can rely on. See the template as your life build that supports you in the TOEFL speaking section. Second, a template is really great because you will use linking words. When you create a template or when you use a template that you found online, this template will usually contain linking words. And linking words are really important because linking words make it clearer what you want to say. And if you use linking words, this also shows that you have a broad range of vocabulary and that you know how to use these words effectively. If you memorize a template that contains linking words, you won't need to think about linking words when doing the TOEFL speaking section, because all these words will already be in your head. You will use them naturally because you learned them before, because you memorized them. This will make it a lot easier for you to speak in the TOEFL speaking section, and consequently it will make it a lot easier for you to get a really high score. Finally, a template helps you structure your answers, and it's really important that you answer the tasks in TOEFL speaking in a structured way, because this is what you will get points for. You will get points if your answer is clear, if the listener can understand what you want to say. And the better your answers are structured, the clearer it will be for the examiner what you want to say, and the higher will be your score. So definitely use templates in order to improve the structure of your answers. If you need a template for TOEFL speaking, have a look at my video where I talk about the template I used in the TOEFL speaking section. You can find the link in the description below. You will also find a template there that you can download and use for your TOEFL preparation. Let's go on with tip number 2. Know the task types. In TOEFL speaking, there are several types of tasks, and it's really important that you know what each task is about, because otherwise you will not know how to answer this task when you are sitting the exam. For example, there will be a task where you need to talk about your opinion, and there will be another task where you need to talk about the opinion of another person. And it's important that you know what kinds of tasks will appear in the TOEFL, because if you know that, you can prepare them. First, you can prepare the vocabulary that you want to use for each task. You need different vocabulary when you are talking about your opinion than when you're talking about the opinion of another person. And it's also really important because you only have a very limited amount of time in TOEFL speaking. When you are getting a task in TOEFL speaking, you won't have the time to think about what the task is about, what the task asks you to do. You have to know that before starting your exam, so that when you're getting the task, your brain thinks, okay, I have seen this task before. I know what I have to do. This is really important if you want to get a high score in TOEFL speaking. Tip number 3. Manage your time. Guys, time management is really important in TOEFL speaking. You need the right time management in order to cope with the tasks. And this is a mistake I made in the TOEFL speaking section. What I did was I went way too much into detail when answering each task. I gave more information and even more information. As a result, I had to speed up a lot to get the most important points that I wanted to say across in the time frame I had, and I had to skip some information that perhaps would have been important. So really, guys, learn from my mistake. Make sure that you have a proper time management. Keep it short. Only include the information that is necessary and move on to the next point in order to get across everything that you need to say. And this leads us right to the next tip. Tip number 4, be concise. It's really important that you are concise in TOEFL speaking. And it's important for 2 reasons. The first reason is what I just said. You only have a very limited amount of time to speak. And if you include tons of information, as I did in TOEFL speaking, you will not have enough time to say the important points that you need to say. The second reason is that you get points for relevant information. You don't get points for information that is not relevant. And therefore, you should try to focus on the most important things that you need to say in order to get your point across, in order to answer the task. Let's go on with tip number 5. Speak loud enough. Guys, this is something you should not underestimate. In TOEFL speaking, you get points for how you speak English. And of course, you get points for pronunciation and the vocabulary you use and whether you use linking words, whether you have a good structure. But there is another important thing, and this thing is so important. The examiner must understand you. The problem is that the TOEFL speaking section can be stressful. And when we are stressed out, we sometimes tend to speak more quietly because we are nervous, we are stressed out, and perhaps because we fear that we are saying the wrong things. And what happens is we speak more quietly and ETS cannot understand us. You must absolutely avoid that. Don't let this happen, because it's really a pity if you speak really well, but in the end you don't get the points because the examiner couldn't understand you because you spoke too quietly. Don't let this happen. There is a method you can use to avoid that. I'd recommend speaking a little bit louder than you would normally do. So when you start the TOEFL speaking section, when you approach a task and when you speak, try to speak louder than you would normally do, because normally you speak a bit more quietly because you are nervous, and if you force yourself to speak a little bit louder, it will just be fine for the examiner and you will give them the possibility to hear what you're saying. Tip number 6. Take good notes. In TOEFL speaking, it's also important that you take good notes. Why is that so important? Guys, it may happen that when you prepare what you want to say, you have many great ideas. And when you start speaking, you're nervous, and it may be that you can't remember what you wanted to say. And then you will be really stressed out, and normally what happens is that you cannot remember anything at all. So don't let this happen. You can easily avoid that if you take good notes when preparing what you want to say afterwards. The problem is that in TOEFL speaking, you don't have much time. You will be in a hurry. So what you need to do is you need to take notes quickly, very quickly. How can you do that? I'd recommend only writing down the most important keywords because you simply don't have the time for more. Think about what you want to say during your preparation. Write down the most important things and only write one word. Don't write a whole sentence. You absolutely don't have the time for that. You will lose valuable time if you write down sentences. This won't help you. So only write down the most important words and then go on and start speaking and use your notes for that. Let's get to the last point. Tip number 7. Practice speaking. Guys, it's really important that before taking the TOEFL, you practice speaking. There is absolutely no way around that. If you want to get a high score in TOEFL speaking, you need to know how to speak. And you only know how to speak if you practice speaking before. I know that speaking to yourself is weird, speaking to your wall is weird. I've been there. I also had to practice speaking before taking the TOEFL. So I know that this situation is strange, but you need to do it nevertheless. Therefore, speak to your wall or speak to your pad or speak to whoever or whatever you like to speak to and practice speaking English at home. This is really important because you need to get used to speaking English. If you do that, it will be natural for you to speak in the TOEFL speaking section. Don't forget that in TOEFL speaking, you are speaking to a computer. This is not a real person, so you should get used to the situation that you will encounter in the TOEFL. This is the best way to prepare yourself for taking the TOEFL and for doing well in the TOEFL speaking section. And it's absolutely necessary if you want to get a high score in TOEFL speaking. That's it. These are my 7 top tips for TOEFL speaking. If you like, download your summary. You can find the link in the description below. If you have any questions or if you have a video wish, tell me about that in the comments below. I'd love to hear about that. And if you found this video helpful and if you want to know more about the TOEFL, hit the subscribe button. I'd be very happy to see you here next time. Bye bye.